Hey everyone, I know things are pretty bleak, especially after, after the 2024 election. It's like, you poured your heart into it and soul into this progressive agenda, and to see everything just go the way it did, I don't know, it's kind of a gut punch. So we're going to take a deep dive into some sources that really expose how we got here. And we're going to particularly focus on how big tech played a role.
It's not just politics as usual. This is about how the carelessness of these tech elites have completely warped our reality and undermined everything that we've been working toward as progressives.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have a Kara Swisher's new book, Burn Book, a couple of articles about her, and some other pieces about the state of big tech, just generally. And Kara, just for anyone who doesn't know who she is, she's a veteran tech journalist who does not hold back. She's not afraid to call out the hypocrisy of Silicon Valley.
Yeah, she's been doing this for a long time, and she's very well respected.
Yeah.
And in this book, she really does a good job of that. She's calling them out, especially when it comes to, how detached these tech leaders are from the real world consequences of what they're doing.
Right.
Their actions.
Yeah. I mean, it's like they preach simplicity.
Yeah.
But they're flying around in private jets.
Yeah.
And funding vanity space programs. So it's all about appearances while the world burns, literally in some cases because of,
right.
their inaction on climate change, for example.
Right. And it's that detachment, it's the lack of empathy that's allowed someone like Elon Musk to become a key player in Trump's resurgence.
Yeah.
And remember, she actually predicted this during her book tour, that he would throw his weight behind Trump.
Right. And she was right. I mean, the consequences of that are huge.
Or disastrous. Yeah.
It's not just scooters. Like, he didn't just endorse him. He went all in. I mean, he funded a PAC, took over Trump's entire ground game, used X, which was formerly Twitter, to spread misinformation like wildfire.
Yeah.
It was almost surreal. It was like watching him up on stage, like a bizarre mix of a tech bro and a carnival barker.
Right. And we need to understand what taking over the grain game means. It's not just about rallies. It's about organization, getting people to the polls, having the sophisticated data operation to target voters. He used his wealth and his influence to actually manipulate the very fabric of our election.
Yeah. And it's like, he was so openly critical of Trump at one point. It's like, what changed? What happened?
Power.
Oh, wow.
Pure and simple. I mean, under a different administration.
Right.
He'd be facing scrutiny, regulations, maybe even some consequences for his behavior. But by siding with Trump, he's placed himself above the law.
Above the law. Yeah. It's just wild. And then there's DOGE, like the so-called Department of Government Efficiency.
Which is really just a vehicle for his ego and his desire for just unchecked control. I mean, he fires thousands of government employees, including the ones who are supposed to be regulating his businesses.
Right.
It's such a blatant conflict of interest and a mockery of democratic principles.
It's like he's playing Sin City, but instead of building this thriving city, he's just dismantling a real one piece by piece.
Right. And he's using this language of efficiency and innovation to justify what he's doing. Like, he's this disruptor, this visionary who's going to fix the government.
Right.
But he's just consolidating power and enriching himself at the expense of everyone else.
It's so disheartening. Like, we always knew that big tech had a lot of influence.
Yeah.
But to see it play out in such a blatant way in politics it's terrifying.
Yeah. And it goes beyond Musk. The entire tech industry has been complicit in this erosion of our democracy.
Yeah.
They created these platforms that prioritize engagement over truth, profit over people.
Right.
They've allowed misinformation and hate speech to just flourish, all while claiming to be neutral arbiters of information.
It's a complete betrayal of the values that the internet was, supposedly built on.
It's supposed to be built on,
Openness, transparency, connection. And instead, we just have this system that's designed to manipulate us and exploit us.
And the consequences are devastating. And it's not just about elections. It's about this erosion of trust, the breakdown of communities, the fragmentation of our shared reality.
So how did we get here? Like, where did we go wrong?
Well, one of our sources, historian Yuval Noah Harari, he makes this interesting point about the printing press.
Okay.
He points out that it took like 200 years for the printing press to actually contribute to the scientific revolution.
Oh.
Because it took that long for institutions to catch up, to figure out how to sift through the information and determine what's reliable and what's not.
So are you saying that, like, we're still in the dark ages of the internet?
Kind of, yeah.
We're drowning in information, but we don't have the tools to figure out what's true and what's not.
Yeah. And it's not just about individual responsibility either.
Right.
We need institutions
Right.
that can help us navigate this new information landscape. Institutions that can combat misinformation, hold these companies accountable, and protect our elections. But those institutions
Right.
are being eroded by the very forces that they're supposed to regulate.
Okay. I'm going to be honest. This is all making me feel even more defeated. It's like we're up against this massive, unfeeling machine, and we have no idea how to stop it.
Yeah. It's a bleak picture, no denying that.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to understand how we got here, to see the patterns, the players involved. If we can understand the problem, then maybe we can start to envision a way out.
I guess knowledge is power, even if it's depressing knowledge. But what does that way out look like? I mean, how do we even begin to fight back against this behemoth, this monster?
That's the question we need to grapple with. And it's a question we're going to keep exploring as we dive deeper into these sources. But one thing is for sure, it's going to take a radical shift in our thinking, a complete reimagining of how we interact with technology and how we reclaim our democracy from those who seek to exploit it.
I mean, it's like we're living in one of those dystopian sci-fi movies, you know, the ones where the tech CEO with like a God complex just takes over the world.
Right.
But this isn't a movie. This is like real life.
This is our reality, and it's not just Musk. This election was a symptom of a much bigger problem, which is this: the capture of our information systems by a handful of incredibly powerful and careless individuals, and their obsession with profit and disruption has just come at the expense of truth and democracy and the very fabric of our society.
You mentioned earlier how these platforms prioritize engagement over truth. It's like they figured out how to hijack our attention spans and just like feed us whatever keeps us scrolling, whether it's true or not.
Right, exactly. They've weaponized our psychology against us. And it's not just about spreading misinformation. It's about creating these filter bubbles, these echo chambers, where people are only exposed to information that confirms their biases. And it's dividing us. It's making it impossible to have these productive conversations, to find common ground.
So what happens to the progressive agenda in this environment? I mean, how do we fight for social justice, economic equality, climate action, when the very tools that we need to organize and communicate are being used to undermine us?
It's a tough question. And honestly, I don't have all the answers. But I think we need to start by recognizing that the old playbook just doesn't work. We can't just rely on traditional media or even social media, as it exists right now, to get our message out. We have to find new ways to connect with people, to build communities of resistance, to develop narratives that can cut through the noise and resonate with people who are feeling disillusioned, disengaged.
I mean, it almost feels like we're going back to like the days of underground movements, like relying on word of mouth and like secret meetings to spread our message. That's daunting.
It is daunting, but it's also a call to be more creative, more strategic, more determined than ever before. I mean, we need to be willing to experiment, to take risks, to challenge the status quo. We need to reclaim the tools of technology and use them for good.
Okay, but how do we do that? How do we fight back against these algorithms and these billionaires? It just feels like an impossible battle.
But it's not going to be easy. But I think there are a few things we can do. First, we have to start talking about tech in a different way.
Okay.
We have to stop treating it as this neutral force and recognize that it's being used to shape our thoughts, our behaviors, our worldviews. We need to demand more transparency and accountability from these companies. We need to push for regulations that prioritize human well-being over corporate profit.
Sounds like a pretty tall order. I mean, look at what happened with net neutrality. We fought so hard and we still lost. How do we even convince lawmakers, who many of them are just in the pockets of these tech giants, to do anything meaningful?
It's going to require a sustained and coordinated effort. We need to build a powerful movement, a coalition of diverse voices demanding change. We need to pressure our elected officials, hold them accountable, and make it clear that we will not tolerate a system that puts corporate power over the needs of the people.
So it's going to take a lot more than just voting every few years.
Absolutely. We have to be engaged citizens, active participants in the democratic process. We need to organize on a local level, build relationships in our communities, hold those in power accountable every single day, not just on election day.
So it's not just about changing the laws, it's about changing the culture. It's about shifting the power away from these corporations and back to the people.
Exactly. And that is a long-term project. It's not going to happen overnight. but it's the only way that we're going to create a future where technology serves humanity rather than the other way around.
It's just easy to get overwhelmed by how huge this problem is. I mean, where do we even begin?
Well, I think the first step is just rejecting this narrative of inevitability, this idea that this is just the way things are, that we're powerless. It's a lie. We have more power than we realize, and we have to start using it.
So what does that look like in practice? What are like some concrete steps we can take to fight back against big tech, to reclaim our democracy?
Well, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. It's going to require a multifaceted approach,
right.
A combination of individual actions and collective organizing. We have to educate ourselves and others about the dangers of big tech and become more conscious consumers of information.
So like be more critical of what we see online. Do our own research. Don't just accept everything we see in our newsfeed.
Yeah, exactly. We also need to support alternative media outlets and platforms that are committed to ethical journalism and truthful reporting.
And what about the political side? Like how do we make sure that the people we elect are actually representing us and not just their donors?
Right. Well, we need to demand campaign finance reform. Get money out of politics. Create a system where ordinary people have a real voice. We can also support candidates who are committed to challenging the power of big tech. Yeah. And fighting for a more just and equitable society.
Okay. That all makes sense, but let's be realistic. I mean, these tech companies are so powerful. They have so much money and they're lobbying so hard. They have like an army of lawyers. How do we even compete with that?
We can't compete with them on their terms. We have to play a different game. We have to leverage our greatest asset, which is our collective power.
You're talking about people power. Like even though we may not have billions of dollars, we have something they don't, which is numbers.
Exactly. We need to organize, mobilize, make it very clear that we will not tolerate a system that puts corporate greed over human well-being. We have to make it politically and economically costly for these companies to keep operating in a way that harms our democracy and our planet.
So you're talking about protests, boycotts, direct action campaigns, that kind of stuff.
All of that. But it's not just about being disruptive. We also have to be constructive. We have to come up with different models, create our own platforms, our own technologies that prioritize human connection, democratic values, and a sustainable future.
I mean, it sounds like you're talking about a revolution. Like a fundamental shift in how we think about technology and what it means for society.
Yeah, in a way. I mean, we have to reclaim the internet. We have to reimagine it as a tool for liberation, not exploitation.
That's a really powerful vision.
But I got to be honest, I'm still struggling with this feeling of like despair. It just feels like we're fighting an uphill battle against this tide of greed and corruption and just apathy.
I understand. Believe me, I feel it too.
Yeah.
It's easy to get discouraged when you see the forces that we're up against, but we can't let despair paralyze us. We have to channel that anger, that frustration into action.
Okay, but what about the people who aren't angry? The people who are just happy to scroll through their feeds and just watch stuff and just ignore the world burning around them. How do we reach those people? Right, that's the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
Breaking through the noise. Getting through those filter bubbles, awakening people to what's really happening. It's going to take creativity and empathy, a willingness to meet people where they are. We have to find a way to connect with their values, their hopes, their fears, and show them that there's a better way, a future worth fighting for.
Yeah. It feels like we're just scratching the surface here. There's so much more to talk about. So many more questions.
There always is.
Yeah.
And we'll continue this conversation in our next episode, where we'll delve a little deeper into the implications of all of this and explore some potential paths forward.
It's like you got up in like the specifics of this election, the personalities, the policies, but it's like when you zoom out, something way bigger is happening.
Yeah, it is. It's a global shift. I mean, it's moving away from these democratic values towards authoritarianism. And tech is a key player in all of this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's providing these tools for surveillance and censorship. Propaganda on a scale we've never seen.
It's like we're sleepwalking into this future where every move is tracked. Our thoughts are monitored. Our ability to dissent is silenced. And it's like, the scary part is most people don't even seem to care. They're just too busy, scrolling through their feeds and getting their little dopamine hits to notice that like The walls are closing in around them.
Right. And that's exactly what these companies want. They want us to be passive consumers, not active citizens. They want us addicted to their platforms, not engaged in our communities. Because as long as we're distracted, as long as we're divided, they can keep amassing power and wealth with no accountability.
So how do we break free? How do we wake people up to what's happening before it's too late?
Honestly, it's a monumental task. I mean, we're up against some of the most powerful forces in the world. Corporate greed, political corruption, a culture that just prioritizes convenience and entertainment over truth and justice.
It feels overwhelming. It's like, what can one person even do?
Right. It's understandable to feel that way. But despair is a luxury we can't afford right now.
Right.
We have to remember that every social movement, every revolution in history started with a small group of people who refused to accept things as they were, people who were willing to stand up, to challenge injustice, to fight for something better, even when the odds were stacked against them.
So you're saying we need to find that same courage, that spirit of resistance to face down this tech-enabled authoritarianism.
Exactly. We need to reclaim the power of collective action. We need to organize, mobilize, demand change, hold our leaders accountable, and be willing to challenge those who are profiting from the erosion of our democracy.
Okay. What does that look like in practice? What are some things people can do right now to fight back against this, to reclaim our democracy?
Well, I think first and foremost, we have to start talking about this. We have to break the silence, raise awareness, educate ourselves and others about the dangers of unchecked corporate power, unfettered technology. We have to be having these honest conversations about the trade-offs we're making, the values we're sacrificing for convenience and entertainment.
So, less scrolling, more talking, less consuming, more creating.
Exactly. We need to be more discerning about the information we consume, the platforms we use, the products we support. We need to support independent media, independent creators, organizations that are fighting for a more just and equitable world.
What about the political side? How do we make sure that our elected officials are actually representing us?
Yeah.
And not just, the people who fund their campaigns.
Right. We need campaign finance reform. We need to get money out of politics, create a system where ordinary people have a voice. We can support candidates who are committed to these things, to challenging the power of big tech, to fighting for a more just and equitable society.
It's so easy to get cynical about politics.
Yeah.
It feels like the system is rigged and that our votes don't matter.
I get it, but we can't give up on democracy. I mean, we have to participate, but we have to participate in a more informed, engaged, and strategic way.
So not just voting every few years, but holding those people accountable once they're in office.
Exactly. We have to be active citizens, not passive consumers. We have to organize locally, build relationships in our communities, and make our voices heard on the issues that matter most to us.
That's a really powerful message, a real call to action. But I gotta be honest, I'm still struggling with that sense of despair. It's like this uphill battle against this relentless tide.
It is a long road ahead, no doubt. But we can't let the enormity of the challenge paralyze us. Every step we take, every action we choose, no matter how small it seems, is a step towards a better future.
What's the takeaway? What do we want to leave people with?
The message is simple. Wake up. Pay attention. Get involved. The future isn't set in stone. We have the power to shape it. But only if we're willing to fight for it.
A fight we must. Because if we don't, the future that's painted in these sources, this future of corporate control, environmental collapse, the erosion of democracy, that will become our reality.
We're at a crossroads. The choices that we make today will determine the course of history. It's time to decide what side we're on.
That's it for this deep dive.